the people. Sahara love the masses.
Welcome back to the special edition of our Saturday show, the final edition. For the time being, my name is Rudolf Okonkwo. He was one of the members of the National Peace Committee that met with President Buhari yesterday. While Nigerians were insinuating that the Peace Committee went to persuade President Buhari to stop the probe of the former President Goodluck Jonathan, our guest came out and announced that it was not the case. It is our honor to have His Eminence, Bishop Matthew Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, joining us again. Bishop Kukah, welcome back to SaharaTV.
Thank you very much, Rudolf, for having me.
Yes, your peace committee met with President Buhari yesterday. Thereafter, you said that you had a very wonderful conversation. How was the president's countenance? How was his mood?
Well, in the sense of the word, President Buhari is fully in charge and taking his job seriously. Our conversation was essentially to complete the cycle of discussions that the committee had initiated. We had, before meeting the president, met with the boards of trustees of both the PDP and the APC. One, to just hear them out on what their expectations were of the Peace Committee. Then after that, we met the Senate President before we went on to meet the former President, President Goodluck Jonathan, and then we went on to meet President Buhari himself. So that was really just the completion of a series of conversations that the committee had planned.
Now, after the meeting, you came out and you told the media, and I quote, "The good news is that Nigerians are committed to a new nation." Now, the question is, and Nigerians are asking this question, can there be a new nation when all things have not passed away? And how can all things pass away without a complete sweep or, in some cases, a surgical removal?
Well, the first thing is when you talk about all things passing away, all things don't necessarily pass away physically. They are largely orientations. I mean, the 923,000 square kilometers that make up Nigeria will not pass away. But clearly, we are set for a new orientation. The party that is now in power is a party that specifically and ideologically campaigned very clearly on the fact that things could not go on the way they have been in Nigeria. So when you talk about things passing away, the 170 million Nigerians have not vanished. It is a question of orientation and a question of attitude. But nobody should be under any illusion that just at the press of a button, we are about to see a new dawn. No. I think it's just the beginning of a very, very long journey that could be a journey of 1,000 miles. But clearly, the idea is for Nigerians to accept that hopefully things cannot go on the way they've always been. This is not a job for government. The president can only give direction. It is a clarion call to all Nigerians.
Now, yeah. You also said this about your committee, and I quote, our own commitment is not to intimidate or fight anybody. And people are asking, who is intimidating whom? Who is fighting whom? I don't know if you can explain that.
Well, it is also very interesting. It's also very interesting. Ahead of the elections, remember that the National Peace Committee, our name was National Peace Committee for the 2015 elections. And actually, our visit to Buhari, our visit to the National Assembly, and our visit to the political parties was again for us to say, look, we finished our work. But what do you think there is for the party? I mean, sorry, for the committee. Can we just dissolve and go back home? Because it's not something that it's an assignment that we took on our own initiative as citizens of Nigeria. So what we were saying was in response to the allegations that were widely made in some sections of the media that somehow the idea behind our visiting the president was because somebody, I mean, President Jonathan specifically, had sent us to go and plead with President Buhari over what the president had been saying about the need for a probe and so on and so forth. And we were just making the point based on the fact that in the run-up to the elections, the APC candidates and the APC as opposition was constantly on our doorsteps, reminding us and accusing the federal government of all kinds of blackmail, intimidation, and so on. Now that they are in power, we are getting basically the same accusations from the PDP. So it's like the shoe is on the other foot. But I think what we really meant was that we were interested in saying that our role is not to run anybody's errands. Our role is specifically to give encouragement to our politicians on behalf of Nigerians that we've had a free and fair elections, and Nigerians want to see a new dawn in place.
Now, according to news report, the former head of state, Abdulsalami Abubakar, advised President Buhari that Nigeria was no longer in a military regime, so he shouldn't be fair in probing former government officials. Now, is your peace committee afraid that Buhari has not been fair, or that the military were not fair in the past when they probed administrations of before them?
No, that's not what I'm the one. I was the one who said that, not General Abdulsalam.
Okay.
We were saying against the backdrop of this whole thing about President Jonathan. Our argument and the point we wanted to make very clear is that we're in a democracy, and you have investigations in a democracy, not probes. And that even President Jonathan himself, neither President Jonathan nor the members of the PDP, in our conversations with them, nobody was averse to an attempt by the government to look at what had happened in the past, the mistakes that had been made, and devising the best strategies for correcting them in order to ensure that the same mistakes are not made again. So what we are saying, we're not making a judgment on the government of President Buhari, nor are we alleging that things have not been done well. We were simply saying that I don't think anybody should already be criminalized when nobody has been brought before a court of competent jurisdiction. And that there was a climate of mob lynching, with people making all kinds of allegations and all kinds of claims when nobody is standing before a court as such. So generally our thinking was, this is our country. Whatever the president needs to do, he needs to do it, but within the strictures of the law. That was clearly and simply what we are saying. We're not speaking on behalf of the President Jonathan, who is an ordinary citizen, nor are we speaking on behalf of any particular person. We're speaking on behalf of ordinary Nigerians.
Now, in his response to your committee, President Buhari said that now everybody does what he wants. That is why security-wise and economically we are in trouble. Now, what is your view as the best way, or in your own words, the right way to stop Nigerians from doing whatever they want?
Well, I'm not sure if you're quoting the president correctly, but notwithstanding that, I think we must also not forget that for over 20, 30 years, this country was under the rule of the military. And military rule, the first casualty of military rule are human freedoms as guaranteed by constitutions and guaranteed by democracy. So the position was always the first casualty in any military regime. So we were subjected, the rule of law was substituted for the rule of men. And it's not going to be an easy proposition to think that Nigerians will automatically begin to follow due process. As you can see from the tragic role of a lot of our governors and public officials, there's every evidence that people are just elected into offices and they're just wearing civilian uniform but are hurt. They're behaving as dictators who are military. So our argument is that this is a long journey, and we must begin it and by appreciating the fact that every citizen must be subordinated under the principles of the law. And we are, like I said, the government that is in power was voted for precisely because it committed itself to the fact that there would be a change, a fundamental institutional and structural change in the way that any form of business was being done in Nigeria.
Now, in the last 3 months, we can confirm that the cash going to the states from federal accounts has been rising, even when oil price is still falling. Now, that phenomenon has been attributed to what they call the fear of Buhari. Now, some people think that your committee is out to dilute that fear. What is this fear, and how do you attribute the increase in revenue coming to the government, even when our main resource, our main income avenue, the price is still going down?
Well, let me say quite frankly that I will seriously object to the attempt of anybody to impugn the integrity of any member of the committee. This committee it's an initiative of respected citizens. Not perfect in any sense, but people who are committed, and I think the integrity of the members of the committee is not in doubt. And like I said, when we had our meeting with President Jonathan yesterday, he made it very clear that he himself was more than happy to welcome, any kind of investigation. We are not standing in the way of the investigation of anybody, but for goodness sake, let us not confuse the chaff with the grain. We must understand that what President Jonathan did by conceding to President Buhari must never be diluted, because it surpasses and it laid the foundation for where we are today. Without that concession, there probably would have been, I don't know where General Buhari will be. I don't know where President Jonathan himself would have been. I don't know where I would personally have been today. But I'm not sure that we would have a country who will be sitting here having this conversation. You cannot place any value on that event. And when you look against the backdrop of what is happening in Burundi and what the tragedy of a lot of other African countries, if Nigerians persist in this kind of conversation that simply is a distraction, then all you are doing is just fueling those who have refused to surrender power. Because if you are creating the impression that if you do everything that is right, Nigerians will not appreciate you, I think it's a tragedy. So for me, the first of all 99 or over 100% of what has been said is as a result of a few irresponsible people speaking through the social media who have absolutely no single shred of evidence for the claims that they are making. It is a tragedy, and I think we must therefore isolate these miscreants from the substance of the issues. If anyone has any objection or any evidence against me or against any member of the committee, please let them step forward with it. But for now, we have got a country to build. Okay, you can bring back all the money that has been stolen in Nigeria, but there has to be a country before that money is already used to anybody. So I think we must not lose sight of what the spectacular development, what happened, the amount of international goodwill by Nigerians, by people abroad, and so on and so forth. Nigerians must not squander that goodwill, by chasing shadows where they don't exist.
Yeah, that's why we like talking to you on SaharaTV, because we deal with people who are on social media and they are responding to what people like you are doing, and they are sending message across, and we try to bring people like you to come and explain so that the people on social media who may have a different view will understand some of the reasons why you do some of the work you do. Now, so my asking, is this committee, is the job done, or are you going to find a new mission? Are you going to continue to exist and find a new mission?
Look, all of us who are members of the committee are extremely busy people. General Abdul Salam has had to cut short international travel. Many of us have had to cut short international travel to be at this, to be committed to this process. I am 120%, and I believe every member of the committee is 150% committed to ensuring that Nigeria turns the corner and Nigeria turns a new leaf. the least we can do is to allow, there are too many young people, the ability to press a computer keyboard is not a license for people to be irresponsible, really. And I think people must try to find the facts. This is the beauty of democracy, that our arguments must be based on facts. Now, we decided to have this consultation purely and simply because everybody wanted to go back to their jobs. So we went through, we called the political parties, we spoke to some members of civil society. Please, our job is done. We want to go home, but we need to know, what do you think of the committee? Dr. Ibn Chambers, the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa, was the first person who spoke eloquently about the great work that the committee had done, and said that we needed to transform into a council so that other West African and African countries can learn from the contributions of this committee. Now, those are the things we should be focusing on. When we went to see the Senate President, he said the same. When we had meetings with the members of the Board of Trustees of the PDP and the APC, it was interesting. The PDP eloquently said it is committed to playing its role as an opposition party, and that all of them are committed to working for the unity of Nigeria. We went to the National Assembly. They were even more exuberant and more enthusiastic. We went to President, Goodluck Jonathan. He also was enthusiastic. But for me, the greatest show of enthusiasm came from the president, which actually for me came as a bit of a surprise. The president was very, very enthusiastic and said to the committee, look, whatever it is that the government needs to do, it is going to do it to support you. I don't want us to be, we are like a midwife, and a midwife cannot remain forever with the baby. I believe that the Nigerian political class has the capacity, they have the sagacity, to deal with the issues that they've been elected to deal with. And the earlier they get their act together, the better it is for us. But I just want it to be known that members of the committee have far, far more important things to do. But we have placed our nation first. So nobody has been paid a single penny. And we hope to do this job without collecting a penny from anybody. So it is not a job that, this job, nobody's integrity depends on this job. All that we are trying to do is to do what we think is best for our country. That in the process of guiding this new democracy, those who are operating it can find a bit of support when they need it. That is really the basis for the Peace Committee. And our job will be determined by those that we are seeking to support. If tomorrow the political parties say we are okay, you can go home, we'll be more than happy to do that. So it's not as if we hope to be hanging around. Our idea is just to keep encouraging the members of the political parties.
That's very okay. So I was saying, when we knew you were coming, we decided to ask people to send us questions they think we should ask you. And I think one of them is something I want to ask you and see what your reaction is, because sometimes the young people, the way you said, they're on the other side, they don't get the chance to react, to talk to people like you and get an answer. This is the question I was given. Said, what do you make of these headlines? Men of God failed to deliver Jonathan from a spell. That was said by Bishop Okonkwo. And then there's another one. Jonathan was held hostage while in office. That was by Wole Soyinka. And then the one by Jonathan himself, who said, I am just realizing this corruption for the first time. And this writer said, did men of God who were around Jonathan fail him? What do you say to someone like this?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they should talk to the men of God who were around Jonathan. I wasn't a part of Jonathan's chaplaincy. The things they are talking about, I have no idea, and I'm not sure that I know what to say. The men of God that were around Jonathan, well, they are there. The prayer centers that the President Jonathan went to, people know them. So that's where you should take your searchlights to. So it's not a question, it's not something I'm competent enough to comment upon. And if Professor Wole Soyinka said President Jonathan or anybody was held a hostage, well, we know where to go to with hostage takers, but I have no idea. Nobody, like I said, I mean, we can do a post-Jonathan analysis about all this. But really, for me, all this is neither here nor there. Okay, the past is the past. if in the course of his work mistakes were made, and there is an attempt to correct those mistakes, and some of that attempt includes investigation, and some of that investigation includes prosecution, so be it. Our main interest is traffic should not stop. Traffic should keep moving. We want to see a qualitative and a quantitative change in the lives of Nigerians. Nigerians have suffered enough. This is a country, I mean, don't forget, about 30 or so years ago, when President Buhari himself, almost to the day, arrested and tried all the former political office holders. Some of them were sentenced to prison sentences of almost 100, 125 years, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years. Many of those people, typical of Nigeria, have already, quote-unquote, served their sentences, and some of them came back. They are in the same political party with the president himself. They are in PDP. They are actively involved in politics. In a way, it's a measure of the greatness of Nigeria, but it's also a measure of the fact that we don't have a bunch of angels on one side and a group of devils on the other. Nobody knows how Buhari's presidency will end. Nobody knows what will happen to him when he finishes his own tenure. He is full of good intentions now. But if you know this country very well, the stick they are using to whip Jonathan may be the same stick they will use to whip him tomorrow. So this is a country where people don't like to make sacrifices, and the greatest sinners among us want others to be sent on our behalf. So my argument has always been this country will change if all of us decide first to change, and secondly to support by making sacrifices so that our country can change.
Bishop, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you have any last word for our viewers, especially now that this is our last show until sometime towards the end of the year.
Well, it's just to say, democracy is not a perfect form of government, but it requires it has its own logic and its own laws. Principally, patience is the key. So Nigerians must try to be patient with themselves, patient with their country, patient with the system, and patient with those into whose hands they entrust leadership positions. So I think we must do everything that we can to give this government the support it requires, because it has come through a process of elections that the international community and Nigerians are judged to be fair. We have no problem. This is the first time we're having a vice president of Nigeria who is a professor of law. So I think that the combination of all that with Buhari's own commitment to running a system with integrity should give us a reason to hope. And we can only pray that by the time his 4 years are over, this country will be a much better place than when he came, so that others coming after him can even make it much better.
Oh, thank you so much, Bishop Kukah.
God bless you. Thank you, Rudolf. God bless you. And God bless SaharaTV.
Thank you so much. That was Bishop Kukah, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, discussing the meeting they had with President Buhari and other national issues. When we come back, we are still going to bring you more interesting interviews and shows to mark our final show of this season. Stay tuned.